everyone. Excited to welcome our guest here today. He has something that I find to be almost the holy grail of marketing, in that it is not a magic bullet that no one can do, but it is that amazing thing that I get asked about all the time of, I'm just getting started. How do I find my first 100 clients, my first 1,000 clients? Or for those people who are bigger and at scale, how to find my next 10,000 or 100,000? Or how do I create a steady stream of clients? And the great thing is this strategy works really well, even if you're just getting started building your business online, or if you're already at scale. And I have seen successful instances of people doing this right out of the gate. And we've even used it at Thinkific when we're already scaling to actually grow our audience. So this is something I've done, I've seen work, I know well, and I believe in. And Mark Wade here is the expert on virtual summits. And so really excited to have him here today talking about how to use virtual summits to build and then grow your business. If you want to learn more about Mark or everything that he's doing, a great place to start is mysummitframework.com. You can get a free guide there to setting up your own framework for starting your own summit. Virtualsummits.com is where his actual software lives that actually makes it easy for you to launch your own summit. And then, of course, hustleandscale.com is a great place to actually go really in depth and learn in detail the strategies behind how to do this. Mark, really excited to have you here today. Welcome.
Thank you. I am extremely excited to be here. Big fan of Thinkific, and I know you got a great group of people out here. I'm really excited to share some insights.
Great, excellent. And I know, well, you're a course creator yourself and have done a lot of online education and built a business around that as well. So I'm just going to dive right in, because I know a lot of the people watching are course creators. If I'm creating a course, thinking about creating a course, or I already have a course business or an education business, I know that summits can apply to any business, but a lot of our audience they're business owners and entrepreneurs. How do summits kind of apply to either the course business or just building your business in general, either right out of the gate when you're getting started or as you go into scale? Maybe we start sort of out of the gate and we can go into scale later.
Absolutely. Let's jump into that. So yeah, I think it is important to understand, like I firmly believe that like virtual summits are one of the top business strategies that we have right now. And they're also one of the most underutilized tools that are out there as well. And I do think it's important, like you said, to kind of clarify. I like to break it down into the side hustlers and the scalers. The side hustlers, we've all been there. If you started an online business, you started as a side hustler. So we all know that journey. And then we have the scalers out there who maybe have established that successful business and are looking to scale it. So virtual summits, I think they're a little bit misunderstood in the sense of how they are being used. And I think once you truly understand the power and the benefit of what a virtual summit can do for your business, it's kind of a game changer. And in my opinion, it fits perfectly with the course creators. This is like an amazing tool for course creators. So one of the strategies I like to talk about with virtual summits is not thinking of it as a one-time event. Like a lot of people try and look at it maybe as like the Jeff Walker launch model, where they're kind of going all in and going for that 7-figure launch or something like that. I actually see it as a really good opportunity for somebody that maybe has either a smaller list or no list, maybe not a lot of connections in the online world yet, and not a whole lot of authority maybe in their niche yet. This is a really great tool to benefit all three of those areas. And it can be done by essentially anybody. So we can dive into any pieces of this, Greg. We can take it anywhere you want.
So I'm curious, maybe just to highlight it, we'll go back to some of the details of the strategy. Like I'm actually curious, if you're starting from zero, how do you do that first outreach, get your first speakers for the summit? But before we do that, I'm curious specifically to courses, because you mentioned some people look at it a bit differently. And we've talked about this before in terms of monetization. Do you see summits as lead generation, monetization? Is it the business model in its entirety, or is that something you like to package up with education?
Yeah, so I think first off, for a side hustler, one of the most important things you need is a business platform. Okay, a lot of times as side hustlers, we are just kind of running full sprint. We're diving right in there and we're just working without really a clear picture of where we're going. So in order to have, and I think this is important, even before we really get into the virtual summits, to understand, like, to have a successful online business platform, you need to have aspects that bring in leads, bring in subscribers. You need to be able to monetize that some way. And then you need to be able to multiply that, or essentially continue that with something like a membership. So your virtual summits fit very well at the front end of that as the lead generation. Of course, you can monetize that and you can make some profits off of it. But I think people miss out a little bit on the actual benefits of just using that ongoing, what I like to call an ever summit. And then the way that fits great with your platform is having an online course. We go from the summits to an online course, and we can get into some specific strategies with that on how you can really maximize that. But from a summit to an online course, that's really where you can monetize it, and then taking them into some kind of a membership to have that automated or ongoing income. That's kind of where I see the strategy.
Excellent. And okay, so then that's great. So really you're using the summit as your lead generation. There is some revenue. It's obviously going to cover your costs. And actually, I've seen a lot of people do well with it alone as a business, but really seeing that as that initial lead generation and then ongoing lead generation to drive to membership or one-off courses, packaging that up so you have that product to sell ongoing, which is great. And then on the lead generation side, I get this question so much is people at scale are always looking for more ways to add leads. But even, especially when you're out of the gate, it's a little bit harder. It's kind of that, like, you need a bit of a business to generate leads, to have the revenue, to pay for ads, to have the experience to run those more complicated campaigns. But to me, the summits is such a great thing because you really can get doing it out of the gate, and then it continues to work at scale. For someone who's doing this for their first time, one of those first steps in it is actually, well, maybe not the first step, but one of the early steps is finding the people to speak on your summit, the guest speakers for it. How do you find that works for someone who has limited connections in the online world or in their potentially in their industry in terms of finding those early speakers? Do you find that's relatively easy? You just reach out and people are quite receptive to joining summits?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say it's easy, but it's not difficult, and it's relatively simple. And there's some strategy we can get into that'll definitely make it easier. But before we even talk about that, I think it's very important to take one step back and actually think of the strategy behind it. So before you just do a summit because you think it's going to, oh, this is a hot topic, like, oh, crypto's hot right now, let's do a crypto summit, right? That's a mistake, because if that's not what you're truly passionate about or what you're truly interested in, you shouldn't be doing a summit just because you think it's going to be like a hot topic. Your summit should be what you eventually want to be the expert in or the authority in, because this is what's going to build essentially the start of your business platform. So I always like to say you need to understand what your UEP is, your unique expert position. Once you have that, you know your audience. Once you know your audience, you know the problem, and that's how you can come up with your theme. Now, from the theme, like, once you know that, it becomes a lot easier with the speaker recruitment, because these are typically going to be people somewhat in your industry, in your world, in your realm. You may have some connections or not, but let's go all the way on like the low spectrum and say, like, you don't know anybody. You don't have any leads. Like, you're like, how do I do this? So there's three strategies I like to talk about. The first one's pretty well known. It's having an anchor, and we'll come back to, well, actually, we just go right into that. So the anchor, this is going to be one of the best opportunities for you to be able to fill out your summit with high quality speakers. Now, getting the anchor, it's not easy, but it's not impossible. Especially, so if you're new into the industry, it's not going to be as easy for somebody that maybe has the connections like you guys have over there at Thinkific. But the thing to understand is everybody, whether it's Tony Robbins or Richard Branson or John Lee Dumas, everybody at some point needs to promote themselves. Maybe they have a new book coming out, they got a new program or platform they need to promote, or maybe they've had a smear campaign recently and they need some positive press or whatever. So what it comes down to is, don't get too attached to the one anchor. Be willing to do the search to find the anchor or the celebrity, I guess, if you will, position that is in the need of the promotion or getting themselves out, because you'll find one. Okay, so there is that. Now, the step down below that, so the next two parts of this strategy is there's the expert leverage, and then the bottom part is the stair stepper protocol. So with expert leverage, once you have the anchor, this fits perfectly in with the expert leverage strategy. But even if you weren't possible or weren't able to get that anchor, let's say you could get one, let's say A-level influencer, okay? A way to do this, so the first way to start with this is, first off, have you done anybody's training or program? Have you studied under anybody? Have you bought anybody's program? A real good and easy way to make a connection with that person. I'm not saying just because you've done somebody's like training or program, they would definitely speak on your summit. But the strategy or the first step with that is send them out of a blue, a raving fan positive testimony. Most of us in the online business world, we get a lot of negative comments, a lot of the negative stuff sometimes piles over. We don't really see a lot the positive shining testimonies. When we get that, that sticks with us. So if you can do that, you're going to have a lot better opportunity at potentially getting that person to come on your summit. Now, as soon as you have either an anchor or any kind of A-level influencer, the expert leverage kicks in. So essentially everybody's wanting to leverage the expertise of somebody else. That's why podcasts exist. That's why TV talk shows exist, et cetera. They're leveraging the expertise, credibility, success, et cetera, of the other person. So as soon as, if I said I had Tony Robbins on my summit, I'm going to have people lined up to be on that summit because they want to be able to say they were on a summit with Tony Robbins. Now, those are the two higher level strategies. Let's go down to the bottom one, which is not as fun or fancy, but it's actually where it comes through. And that's the Stair Stepper protocol. Mm-hmm. Warm intros are always the best. Okay. We all know that. So always start off with colleagues or friends that maybe have connections in those areas. Tell them what the summit's about. Ask them if they know anybody. Have them intro you. But even with them or without them, once you start making intros, once you start connecting with speakers, and you get some yeses, the speakers start agreeing to be on your summit. It's really straightforward and simple. You simply ask them, do you know anybody else that would benefit to have on this summit or would be interested? About 50% of them are going to go, I do know somebody that would be good at this or somebody that would be interested in this. And then they're going to give you the intro. That's a warm lead from somebody who's already committed to be on your summit. That person is much more likely to go ahead and speak on your summit. Now, a fraction of the time, let's say 20%, the person they intro you to is going to be a little bit higher up in status or authority or whatever than the person below. So that's the Stair Stepper protocol. And then you rinse and repeat and continue that. So those are three kind of overview topics on how you can get speakers. And honestly, it's just about doing the work. It's not impossible. You don't need 5 anchors. You don't need 100, influencers. You just need a few to really make a successful summit.
Excellent. Yeah. And to be honest, I've found we've done this and we've done it before we had the brand that we have now with Thinkific, and there's still a lot more we can do with it. But early days we were doing this and I found it relatively easy to get out there. It was surprising how willing people are to hop in and participate in this kind of thing. I know, talking to Jack Canfield from Chicken Soup for the Soul, he said, I think when he first got that book out, he was on something like 500 or 1,000 interviews and podcasts, and he would just say yes to anything and everything. And I've had friends who've interviewed people like him and of that sort of a brand caliber very, very easily, even with minimal audience or brand credibility on their part, because I think people are just very willing to get out there and participate in interviews, because you never know whose audience you're going to jump onto and it's going to blow up or be big. And it's only a short amount of their time. And with the power of, interviewing online, it's a lot less time commitment than them flying out somewhere or coming into the studio. So it's great for that.
Yeah. I'd also like to throw in another little kind of pro tip with this is a lot of times when you're looking for speakers, we're trying to find the speaker that fits right, like immediately with the theme. So first off, you want to have your theme, and then you're going to break it down into 4 or 5 categories, which allows you to have a little bit of diversity. But the thing everybody overlooks is look for controversy too. Find the 1 or 2 people that disagree with the theme you're putting on, because one, controversy is interesting. And one, those people are going to be a lot more likely to express their opinion because they're never asked. So you could get a pretty high level person that has a differing opinion, and it's going to make your summit interesting. It's not going to, I'm not saying fill the summit with people that disagree with you, but 1 or 2 is definitely a good way to make it a more interesting, compelling summit.
Excellent. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's a good approach to it. Another thing we found worked was just reaching out to people who had an agenda or had sort of publicly stated that they were pushing in one direction and sort of a mission statement. We did a summit for women entrepreneurs, and one of the people we reached out was Michelle Obama. We did not get her on our summit, but we got a response and some positive interaction there. So I think over time that might have worked out if we'd kept doing the women entrepreneurs summits. But I'm like, my point there is just, shoot for the stars, and you never know. You might get something, and we did get a few bigger profile people, definitely. So that was great. Actually, I was just thinking for the people who, we're kind of deep into virtual summits, but just on the off chance people are still figuring out what it's all about. I mean, the gist of it is you're inviting in a whole bunch of speakers. You're putting on very much like an in-person summit, except it's online, sometimes pre-recorded, sometimes live. And then as people are attending that, often you're selling some sort of evergreen access to all of it, or selling access to your course. But really the big thing is people are signing up to come and learn from all of your guest speakers, and all of those people signing up become leads, potential customers, opportunities for you to build your business on your platform. Is that the gist of it? Is there more you'd break it down from that?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely just, I like to point it out, like, obviously wherever your UEP or unique expert position is, you're finding the one problem, like the main problem, and you're bringing the top minds in the world that have the answer to that problem and putting them together with the people that have that problem. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the way to think of it, why are summits powerful and why are they beneficial? Like, think of whatever that problem is you have right now. Maybe it's, figuring out mini chat bots or whatever. Let's say if I could bring the top 10 minds on whatever your problem is and sit them down with you for a day, how much time would that save you? How much failure would you be able to skip over by looking, accessing what they know? That's the power of a summit, is you're bringing together the top minds that can solve the problem and putting them together for free in most cases with people that are like desperately wanting the answer. So that's the power of a summit. I would say it mimics like an online summit. So, a live summit. Most of them are going to be essentially pre-recorded, but yeah, that's the overview of a summit. Yeah.
Excellent. So my biggest challenge when we did this, the first summit we did, was the time to put all the moving pieces together. We spent, I think we were almost a month into planning it. And I have a marketing team. I went to the team and I said, how's the summit coming? And they're like, oh my goodness, we're connecting this landing page to this. We're setting up figuring out the webinar software. We're sending out the invites. We got this spreadsheet tracking all the people we invited. We got about a month in, and we actually had to do a full reset and start over with the planning process. Andrea here on our marketing team did an amazing job of building out this full process structure document of all the moving pieces. You're solving that, aren't you? Because that's why I love talking to you. Is that cost us 3 months of work, and I know some people do this totally on their own, and it takes 2 or 3 months. And now you're doing something that basically fixes that.
Well, the solution came because I had the exact same problem as you. I'm in the healthcare industry by trade. I built I went from a brick and mortar business to an online business. And the way I started that success was with a virtual summit. And again, I have a couple doctorates, but I was never trained in WordPress, right? Mm-hmm. So when I built that first summit, I spent about 30 hours a week for about 4 months building that out. And it was grueling. It took a lot of time and energy. I think there was 7 different softwares and about 26 different plugins all included in that. But summits are so powerful, I couldn't stop doing them. So we continued to run a couple summits a year until finally I was like, we just need a solution for this. So we actually built out a software for us, but found out there was such a need for it that we've opened it up for everybody. So yeah, what took multiple months, hundreds of hours, I've timed it now. And if you had all the information, you can have a virtual summit up and running in less than 30 minutes with no tech skill needed.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a huge time savings. And I think you last time we talked, you'd mentioned something about the number of webinars that are happening on the internet versus the number of summits, and it's hugely disproportionate. There's tons and tons of webinars. You can tell us the number, but a very small number of summits. And I think it just comes down to this one thing of it takes so long to set them up. And with you solving that problem, that creates such a huge opportunity for people who are not in this to get into it, because we measure the success of webinars generally in hundreds of signups, hundreds of visitors, and we're lucky if it's hundreds of like conversions. Measure the success of summits usually in thousands or even tens of thousands. And I think that's obviously a huge motivator to go there. But the only thing that's ever held us and other people back, I think, is the time and the extra effort. You can set up a webinar really quickly. A summit's a whole nother matter. So I love the fact that you're totally changing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we go over to the scalers side, the guys who've got that successful business already going, they're looking for other avenues to kind of increase that extra 100,000 here and there. Summits are great, especially if you have a team. Because, like, for example, I have a team now. I run about 6 summits a year. And each one of our summits, using kind of the overall platform approach to it, are on average around $250,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't mistake that. We don't get $250,000 from the summit. We get it from the summit into the course, into the high ticket, into the membership. But we can run 6 of those, and I have a team that essentially does it. So I spend about 5 hours of my time per summit. So it's a really great way to scale if you've already kind of got that successful business platform and you're looking for other pieces. Now, on the side hustler side, like we've already said, this now, I mean, there's on average, and it obviously changes, but around 200,000 webinars a month. And there's about 2,500 virtual summits a year. So it is a completely underutilized tool. And it's a good strategy if you want to run multiple of them, but you don't even have to run multiple of them. If you ran one and plugged it into that overall business platform that we were just talking about, summit to course to high ticket to membership, that right there is something that you can then automate, optimize, and convert, and then scale it. So it becomes an entire funnel just by starting with that virtual summit.
Excellent. Yeah, that's it's an opportunity that I absolutely love, especially for course creators, because like I've said, so many of them are looking for that first 1,000 potential clients, and it's a great way to get them and even more, and then especially at scale. It's a strategy that worked well for us at scale.
Right. Well, and with the course creators, like I'm a course creator as well. I mean, one of the hard things we deal with is after we've got the course, we have the message, we have the idea, we know how powerful it is and how it's going to change people's lives. The problem is, how do we get them to actually jump into it and do it? So we're all out there trying to lead gen to bring them in, and then trying to warm them up, get them to know, like, and trust us. Well, the virtual summit is the perfect opportunity because it's risk-free. They get to join this summit where they've got other influencers that they already potentially know or like or trust. They get to come into your world risk-free because you're also not technically buying them something. It's huge value. And then they have that opportunity to get to know you. So that is the first part of that funnel, where it takes them from a cold lead to a warm lead. Now they're much more likely to buy whatever course you're going to put in front of them, or at least be a lot more open to listening to what you have to say about it.
Right. And like you said, you've leveraged the brand credibility of all of those influencers who've brought on. Plus, you're starting to build a real relationship with them, which is great for the future.
That's that's kind of a pro tip right there. When you do a virtual summit, go over and above for the speakers afterwards. I mean, all of us get asked to speak all the time on interviews, podcasts, virtual summits. Very rarely do we get anything other than just like an email afterwards saying thanks. Like, one of the strategies we use is we like to send little gifts to the speakers afterwards, nothing expensive, $5, $10, $15, $20.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't believe how much they appreciate it and they love you. I mean, there's such great synergy there. It really can be a huge benefit to your business, especially if you're in the side hustler and the newer side of this, to really opening up other opportunities even past the virtual summit.
Excellent. Okay, so I have a kind of a specific strategy question that I've struggled with, both being as a guest on summits and then when we've put our own on. And so for those of you who aren't aware, when you're being invited into a summit, or you're inviting an influencer in to speak on your summit, often part of the piece there is hoping or asking, if you do it in the right way, that they'll promote your summit to their audience, which is great because anyone they promote it to knows them, likes them. So they're coming in warm to that influencer, seeing a lot of other influencers or speakers on that, or experts. It's not always influencers, could just be experts in the summit. And that really lends their brand credibility to yours, but it also builds your audience, your actual list, because everyone signs up now becomes someone who's following you. And especially if you're going in with a really limited audience size, you can now have all of these people inviting their audiences. That allows you to very, very quickly build your own. I've seen people go from 0 to tens of thousands in their audience with a summit, but the ethics and etiquette of inviting someone who's speaking to invite their audience is always a little challenging. How do you deal with that?
Well, the way I deal with it is I start from the very beginning with a different way of thinking about summits. So I believe one of the negative aspects to summits is most people think that it needs to be a one-time home run hit. I need to get 30,000 leads and $100,000 from this summit.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's what you're going into it with, and you're a side hustler, for example, you don't have all those big influencer connections, you're probably going to be let down.
Right.
I look at summits again on the power of ongoing. So the strategy actually, and I'll actually get into your question, but where it starts for me is what is my goal or outcome I'm trying to get with the summit? And mine is to be successful. I'm looking for several thousand to 10,000 ideally, and I'm looking for tens of thousands or more of dollars. But my goal is not from that one. I don't need to make everything off of the summit, because what I end up doing is maximizing that or monetizing it on the back end, but then I keep the summit going with an ever summit. So that continually brings in more leads every day, week, and month. So the ethics behind it is, first off, just understand if you're in the side hustler category, an affiliate is not going to fill your summit. I mean, we all want them to. We all want to bring all these affiliates on and hope that they're going to build our summit. That's never the strategy I recommend. I always recommend going in with a good strategy and a good plan on how to maximize your exposure with things like co-blogging, reaching out to organizations and associations, finding win-win solutions with sponsors. Not even that they're going to pay you at the beginning, but you can provide them exposure in exchange for them to promote. So there's a lot of little strategies you can do to build your own success on the summit. And that way, if the affiliates don't come through for you, you're not lost. You're not out. And if they do come through, it's a huge home run win.
Excellent. Okay. So you do hint at or ask them, or is there a...
So the way I go about it with affiliate, or so for most speakers, one of the benefits for a lot of the speakers is they have an opportunity to earn affiliate commissions.
Right.
Now, I never force anybody to mail. I never say, in order to speak on my summit, you have to do this or this or this. I provide as much benefit or value to that speaker as possible, and I'm willing to negotiate and be flexible in their interest. Because again, I'm looking past the summit. I'm also looking at the potential for a good relationship with this influencer. So, but the other aspect to it is making it as easy as possible. If it's difficult, they're not going to do it. Right. So I provide everything for them. And I say, if you want to be an affiliate or you want commissions, here's the actions to take. And the ones that want it, do it. The other ones don't. And it's all a win-win essentially. So I'd never force anybody. They have to email or they have to mail. That kind of leaves a bitter taste in people's mouth.
Yep, I've had that. We haven't done that, but experienced it. Awesome. Okay. And I love the fact that it's interesting. All the little, I'm going to go back and watch this later, because all those little things that you really just quickly mentioned, each one of those is kind of gold in terms of other ways. Like, I love the idea of trading sponsorship, not for cash sponsorship, but sponsorship in exchange for a promotion. Like, we'll give you exposure, you give us exposure for actual sponsors. That's great. And the industries and the associations, I think that obviously depends a little bit on, if you're doing a summit on posture, you might have some associations around that, which is great, because then you can reach out and they might have a massive audience they'd be happy to share it with at no cost. So I think that's great, of looking for people who have an audience that would love to share information with them, and this is just a value add for them. Really good stuff in there. Excellent. And so, I mean, you kind of just highlighting some of these really great strategies that I'm actually interested in learning more about, because we've tried summits in the past and I want to do more for Thinkific and hopefully see some of our clients doing more of them as well for their courses. Best place to learn about that is at hustleandscale.com for actual going in depth on the strategies.
Yeah, absolutely. So hustleandscale.com, that's where we go over summits for side hustlers and summits for scalers.
Excellent. And then, so that framework we talked about earlier, so mysummitframework.com, good place to get started. Free framework there to start setting up your first summit.
Yeah. So mysummitframework.com is where I give you the download where you can build out or write out your summit, all the strategies from strategize, synergize, engage, execute, ever summit. And then we go into the hustle scale overview, which is where you add the monetize, maximize, multiply, which is essentially building out the successful business platform.
Excellent. And virtualsummits.com, that's the software that makes this all super easy to do.
Yeah, so you can go and build it out yourself. If you're a scaler and you have a team and things like that, you can definitely have your team do it. If you're a side hustle like I was getting started and you don't want to spend several hundred hours doing this, you can go to virtualsummits.com, where now it's hosting a summit is easier than ever before.
Awesome. And I would say, even if you have a team, I would say, especially if you have a team, don't waste yours and their time trying to do this all yourself. I've done it. It is way more expensive in terms of just think, I mean, literally you get your team on this for like a few weeks or a month, which is not, it's going to take longer than that to do it if you don't use the software. You get your team on it for a month. Think of what you're paying for them for that time when they could sit there and literally do it in a day on virtualsummits.com. So I would say, whatever scale you're at, it makes sense to use software that's going to make your life a lot easier. So I would definitely check out Virtual Summits. I know we're going to use it and excited for digging in more into that. Awesome. Any other stuff that you want to share that would be good and beneficial for our course creators or
for
building a business?
Course creators here. Yeah. And building the business. I think if I just take a couple minutes and kind of go into the business platform, because I really feel that pain. Like I was there, I've gone through it. And I actually used the virtual summit. I've used this strategy. So I didn't just come up and make something up that sounded good.
Mm-hmm.
And to even highlight it, after I built a multi-million-dollar business, not that long ago, about a year ago, I lost it almost overnight. And that's kind of a scary thing, to have a multi-million-dollar business and then overnight essentially lose it due to, we had a natural disaster. We had some hiring issues. We had some, budgeting issues. And then to be sitting there going, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to fix this? How am I going to pay payroll this next month? And what actually hit me at that point is I was trying to look for these big wins, which a lot of times we do. I was like, how can I make $250,000 next week? Because I'm used to doing 800,000 seven-figure launches. And what I finally realized is you got to start small. So I went back to the basics. I did a virtual summit, which then went into my course, which then went into a high ticket offer, which then went into a membership. And within 8 weeks, I had made $350,000, not from a one-time thing, but from essentially in a business platform. So you can take, if you don't want, like, for example, the first part of it, you can use whatever you want as your lead gen. I personally believe virtual summits are one of the best tools. But a successful business platform, essentially, if you have that UEP, your theme, and you connect these all together, it becomes pretty simple and pretty easy. And you have an actual game plan on what to go. So you got your lead, which I use a virtual summit. On the back end of that, we talk about monetize. So you're going to have like a low price course, essentially. And let me just give you an example. So about 3 months ago, I ran the virtual neurology summit. It was brain-based solutions for chronic pain. So healthcare professionals looking for chronic pain solutions for their patients. I then knew what the theme was going to be of the summit. So in the process, I built out a course, Advanced Chronic Pain Solutions. So as soon as the summit was over, I think we did 3,000 or 4,000 leads. Again, this is to healthcare professionals, so pretty specific niche. 3,000 or 4,000 leads. We did around $25,000 or $30,000 from that summit. The week, 10 days after that, I launched the course. We did $45,000 from the course to the exact same people we brought in from the summit. And then 3 weeks after that, we put them into a high ticket offer, which we have a $2,500 certification. We did $150,000 from that. And then on the back end of that, we gave them an opportunity to join our membership at $100 a month. And I think we increased our membership by about $2,200 a month. So now notice those aren't astronomical numbers. It's not seven figures, but now I can do that every month with that platform because it's automated. So that's a business platform. And that's essentially where you're wanting to go to. If you have the course, you have a membership, it's about putting it all together aligned and optimizing what you have.
Excellent. Wow. That's great. And the target audience for that, for the pain management, is it medical professionals or people suffering from pain or?
No, it was specifically healthcare professionals. So the people taking care of patients and in clients. So
Excellent.
you have medical doctors, chiropractors, PTs, massage therapists, etc.
Excellent. Wow.
So if we can do that in that kind of a niche, imagine what you can do with a much broader scope too.
Yeah. And then, like you said, that's something that you can continue to run and have sit there as like an Ever Summit where it's continually drawing in leads to that whole business platform. So that's great. And I know we've been talking for course creators, but really for any entrepreneurs out there, it's a great way to generate exposure and leads and growth for your business. Amazing. That's excellent. Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate it all. For those of you who are interested in checking this out, and I would if you haven't played around with it already, mysummitframework.com, great place to get started in terms of a free framework for mapping it out. Hustleandscale.com for actually going in depth on the strategy and training around how to set this all up. And then virtualsummits.com if you don't want to spend months doing this yourself. So, like, trust me, I've done it. For every summit we do again, we're going straight there to do it in the easy way.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, I absolutely appreciate it. I loved being here. And if I can ever help anybody with strategy, with questions like that, please just reach out. I love talking about this stuff. So thanks.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark.